welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about this belt right here. So this is a Kore Essentials belt. It's a kind of a mixture between a duty belt and like just your regular kind of soft belt. And what I mean by that is it's a good mixture of the two in rigidity, but it's also still pretty comfortable. Now this belt is more rigid than say something like the Blue Alpha Gear belts. And that's because, as you can see right here, it's a pretty thick material, and then it has this nylon backer on the front side. But on the inside, and this is why it's thicker and more rigid, is it has this, I mean, it's basically a big giant zip tie, but it's like a ratcheting system. So if you can see that in there. So as you tighten it, you can see right here, basically a big giant zip tie. So this right here will allow you to release. If you push down on it, then you can pull it out if you want, which is pretty cool. This allows you to get infinitely more adjustability out of your belt versus say something like your traditional style belt, like even this belt right here, where you can see you got about every maybe every inch or so there's an adjustable spot, and sometimes you have to end up making your own hole in the leather in order for it to actually adjust to you to where you like it. But something like this, again, because it has that ratcheting system, it's, oh, I just need it just a smidgen tighter, boom, there you go. You have like what's probably about 1 or 2 centimeters of adjustment instead of a whole inch. So when it comes to changing out holsters or whatever, if you switch guns, depending on whatever your use, you can actually adjust this to fit your holsters. Say if you carry like I do, and the appendix inside the waistband, this allows you to get a snug fit to where it's not just super tight where it just pulls it into your stomach, but it's also not kind of loose where it's popping around. You can get a fine-tuned adjustment without having to say poke a hole if you have a leather belt. Or even if you have, say, for instance, that Blue Alpha Gear one that I have, it's adjustable to any size, but it's stuck in that position once you put it there. It's Velcro, so you can undo it, but I hate undoing and redoing Velcro because eventually it wears out. That's why I have the Cobra buckle on that Blue Alpha Gear belt. But it's stuck to that one size, so whenever I carry a larger gun, it's a little bit, tighter on me versus if I wear a smaller gun, say like a Glock 43, then it's a little bit looser, so it's not quite as adjustable as this. Now, one thing I will say is the Blue Alpha Gear belt that I have is more comfortable than this one, but that's just because it's thinner and it's not as rigid. So if you're looking for a more rigid belt, and I'll kind of talk about why that's an advantage for this belt here in a second. If you're looking for a more rigid belt, like this is the one you want to get for sure. Now again, I'm a skinnier dude, and so anybody knows me, my hips are a little bony, so something like this is a little bit more uncomfortable to wear than something like the Blue Alpha Gear or say a leather belt or something like that that's a little bit more soft. And that's just because, again, it has to be a little bit thicker because of the ratcheting system in there. So you get more adjustability. Now, on somebody who's, say, a normal size, or if you got a little bit of extra, a little bit of extra fluff, then you're going to absolutely love this. It's not going to be uncomfortable at all. And for me, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was just less comfortable than the Blue Alpha Gear one that I use all the time was. Again, so this one I would equate probably to something, say if you're used to wearing like a leather belt like this, it's a thicker material. This belt is less comfortable than this one. So this one is a lot more comfortable than this leather is because this is so thick. This belt is actually, as you can see there, it's actually thinner. So if you're used to wearing something like this, like you'll love this because it's way thinner. So that's just something to take note. And again, on a comfort scale, I don't know, I can make up some numbers here if you wanted to, but like a leather belt being 10 out of 10, a skinny leather belt. The Blue Alpha Gear one I would say is probably around maybe a 7, and then this one I'd put somewhere around, probably around a 6, maybe a 5, just on comfort. And for me, again, comfort isn't everything. It all depends on what you need. So one of the nice things about this, again, is this adjustability. So I absolutely loved it from that aspect. I could tighten it exactly where I wanted to. And, I guess if you eat a big meal or something like that, and you're like, oh, I need to loosen up my belt a little bit to make some more room, then, as you're wearing it, you can be like, oh, let me loosen that out a couple of notches, and then you're more comfortable. Now, realistically, that's useful for, say, whenever you're riding around in a car and you need to loosen your belt a little bit, say if you're on a long road trip or something, instead of taking your gun off, which you should not do, you should always have your gun on you, you can loosen this up a little bit and it'll be a little bit more comfortable. So that's one really nice thing about this versus something like, say, that blue Alpha Gear belt that I have. You're stuck with what it is, and so if you're in a vehicle and it's too tight and it's just uncomfortable, then you're just gonna have an uncomfortable trip. This will be more comfortable. Like that other belt that I have and most other belts that I use, I actually put the buckle kind of at the back in the around the 4 o'clock position, somewhere around there. So if the front of my body is facing that way and you would be looking at my back, my belt is somewhere around here. So my buckle is actually through here. So I actually start it on the belt loop that's over on this direction, just past midway. And then I loop it all the way through, and then I attach it behind me, which is a little bit unorthodox and a little bit, I don't know, strange for some people. But once you do it for a while, you get used to it. And the only disadvantage to that is if you have to take your belt off easily. Which, again, I mean, bump the camera. So again, this has this little ratcheting system here. And all you do, if you want to take it off, it'll be easier to show you from this way. So if you want to take it off, you just push up and you just pull out. And it's pretty easy to taking it out and then to put it back together. Again, it's very easy to do. Now, if you want to, you can leave the belt buckle, you know, up front like that if you want to. Not a big deal. But one of the things that I found that I didn't like about it is generally I put in my belt from this direction. It really doesn't matter. But I carry my gun on this side. I could switch it around and put it over here if I wanted to, and that helps some. So just know that this material over here is going to stick out a little bit, and that's going to be a little bit obnoxious. Now, it will come with this little keeper, and if you're used to a duty belt of any kind, you know what keepers are. If not, they're usually designed for attaching your outer belt to your inner belt, but this one is actually just designed to kind of hold your belt together. So it's like those little loops that come on your belt, like say on this leather belt. It's just like this right here, except this one is, you can see it's fixed, it's permanent, and all that is just there to where you can tuck in the excess material to where it's not just sticking out all over the place. Theirs, because they were smart, is adjustable. So one thing I would like to see them do though is, instead of making it to where it's Velcro, I don't really see a need for it to be Velcro, to be honest. I think it'd be better if this is just a solid piece that was just sewn together, you know, in about that size. And then you could just leave it on your belt. And then whenever you get to it, you know, you can just loop it through. It's not a big deal because, again, this Velcro is going to wear out over time. So that's something I don't like about it. So just making that a solid loop would be, in my opinion, better than the Velcro. But again, the Velcro is easy to take off. So versus if you had something on there, you know, it might get lost. So I get that. But for me, just having a solid piece would work better. So one of the other things that I guess you might want to know if you get this belt is, so whenever you cut it to adjust it, you're going to want to make sure to cut it bigger than you think. So, and they have directions on here. I'll show you what it is. So hopefully you can read. Here's all their information on there. Here's how the teeth work. So whenever you cut the belt, you slide it into place, and then this lever, which is right here. So this lever right here, if I unhinge it, it goes that direction. There's teeth that dig in to the belt. There are a whole bunch of like alligator teeth all the way down here. And as you wrench it down and put it in place, that holds it in place. Then you kind of see where you like it. And then once you figure out where exactly you like, you put these 2 set screws and they screw into the material, and then it's permanent at that point. And they do make a bunch of different belt buckles. So this is just the one I like because I like kind of more low profile. I don't need anything flashy because you're not going to see this belt buckle. But they make a bunch of different ones, so, and they make dress belts too if you like those. So you can pick out whichever kind of buckle you want and just put it on there. It's really easy to do. But whenever you cut it off, see, here's the whole bunch of excess material I cut off because they just ship one size, and then you cut to your size. As you can see, hopefully on here, it's upside down. If that'll focus. There it goes. So you can see 46, 47. The belt size is adjustable whenever you cut it yourself. So I cut off this big chunk. Then as I size it, I cut off smaller pieces, smaller pieces, smaller pieces. And why I was doing that is every pair of pants is different. So I tried on a couple different pairs of pants to see exactly where I wanted this on my pairs of pants and to see where those belt loops are, because I didn't want to have to use this thing because I'm just lazy and I don't want to use that. So I would just tuck this belt back through the pants belt loop. That way it would just hold it in place and I wouldn't have to deal with anything. And again, since there was a belt loop pretty much right here, it just tucked into it perfectly. Worked just fine. And now if you're going to get the belt at the front end, it may not reach one, so you might want to use that keeper. Now they also sell, well, 2 different things. So one, let me show you this. So one of them is a belt hanger. So if you buy multiples of these, If you just have one, honestly, you probably wouldn't need this. But if you buy 2 of them, you can just put it just like that. And then now you can hang it, which, I mean, is kind of cool. So if you want to hang your belts out of the way. Something I noticed though, like if you're going to be hanging your belt, the belt naturally curls up on itself. So if you hang it somewhere where it's got a wall or something behind it, otherwise it's just going to curl up. But they do sell those and they're cheap. They're only a couple dollars. So if you want something like that, they have those. The other thing that they have that I think is actually more useful than this keeper is this sleeve. So this sleeve is designed to go through your belt. All right, so the sleeve goes on the belt just like this, and it's designed, the reason that they have it, actually I didn't show you the install directions. So there's the install directions. If you want to see it, it basically tells you start big and then working your way down, leave a little bit of extra space for your gun. So that's that. But the sleeve on here is designed to protect the belt itself from, say if you have metal clips or those alligator clips on holsters or whatever, and you have something that's going to be rough and might mess up this material. So that's its purpose. The belt itself is pretty rugged where I don't think you'd really need it for that reason. And I think this thing's only like $3 or $4. It's not that expensive. But what I would use this for if I wanted to, say, put this on, you know, the front end, again, that was the front. If I wanted to put it like this and I didn't have a bolt loop on my pants to tuck this back through. And you can see if you just put it on one of the looser, it's just going to keep going out. It won't form to your belt. So what I would do with that is, see if I can do this through the camera. So what I would do is just loop it through here, and now you can feed this through this little sleeve, get it to wherever you want, and now that holds it in place. So this actually works better, again, if you don't have a keeper or you don't want to use a keeper. You could just leave the sleeve on your belt all the time, and this is much thinner than if you put this keeper on this belt where it's double. You see how much thicker this material is. So this would stick out to your shirt versus this would not. So if it was me and I was using this belt somewhere, again, where I didn't have another belt loop that I could tuck it through, I'd just use the sleeve. I don't know, maybe you could cut this in half if you want to. And Kore, one suggestion I would have is make the keeper, again, either have solid material, you can just make it out of this, just make a little section that's only about this wide or something, and then you could have that on there, and this would hold really, really well for that. So, and make it in the same color as the belt. But anyways, that would be my suggestion. So that's how that sleeve works. And again, that's how I would use it. You can use it however you wanted to. To loosen the belt and to take it off, again, it's really easy. It's just this little lever right here. And I really do like this adjustment. I know there's a bunch of different companies that use something similar to this. These belts aren't designed to hold up a ton of weight. I want to say this one's designed to hold up around 8-10 pounds, somewhere in that range. I can't remember where. They also make, this is 1.5 inch. They make a 2-inch belt as well. It's more like a duty size belt. One thing, and I'll go ahead and cover that now. One thing I liked about this belt is it's kind of a multi-purpose belt. So you could use this, again, because it's thin enough and it's comfortable enough, you could use it for an EDC belt, but it's also thick and sturdy enough, as you can see. I can press on that all day long. It's not going to bow. I'm pressing on that and it's not squishing at all. So it's thick enough and sturdy enough where you could actually use this as a range belt. So say if you didn't want to use like a duty belt setup or a war belt setup and you just wanted one belt. Now granted, you'd have to feed, you know, this through, feed your holster through, feed it through again, feed a magazine holder through, you know. But if you're only going to use, say, a couple mag pouches, a holster, and, you know, maybe 1 or 2 other things, then this would be a really good way to do that. Just know it would take a little bit longer to take it on and off, but it would be a lot closer to your body. And this belt is actually thick enough and sturdy enough to actually hold all of that stuff. I ended up using this at the range with a couple, with a Kydex holster, a Kydex mag pouch, double mag pouch, and it worked just fine for that. So if you're just wanting a minimalist type rig, this would be a really good kind of duty belt because it's thick enough for that. And then you don't have to have 2 belts stacked on top of each other if you don't need a whole bunch of stuff. So that's something that I really like, this kind of belt, because that, and I keep comparing everything to the Blue Alpha Gear because that's my other favorite belt. But the Blue Alpha Gear is not thick enough and it's not sturdy enough to use as a range belt. It's only good for concealed carry. One other criticism I have about this belt, and this is a small thing, again, it's not really that big of a deal. If you're using a keeper, your own pant belt loop, or, you know, if you want to use that sleeve, it negates this. But you can see on here how much material there is right here before the actual like ratcheting strip engages. So whenever you put it through, it can start engaging, you know, in theory, right about here. And then if you put on its loosest, you know, setting, then you could just have it right here, and then this would never stick out, and you wouldn't have that problem. Because it doesn't engage still, right there, that's your first one. There's no way to have this not stick out. So whenever this is on your body, you know, it'd stick out a little bit less right here on the first one. But if they can make it to where it stopped, you know, right here for the first click. So if you really wanted not to have this, you know, double layer over itself, you could do that. There might be some design reason why they don't do that. I don't know. But that's just something, if they can do, I'd suggest doing, because that would make it to where you don't need a keeper at all. I actually like this belt quite a bit. I switch back and forth between this and my other one. But whenever I'm going to the range, I tend to use this one more because I can attach more holsters and more equipment and everything to this one because it's more rigid. But it's still comfortable enough to where I take all that stuff off. I can still use this as my, you know, EDC belt whenever I'm on my way home, or, you know, if we go out to eat after the range or whatever, I can still use the exact same belt. I don't have to bring, you know, a whole bunch of belts. I can just use one. So if you're looking for just one belt to kind of as a do-it-all, this is a really good choice for that. Again, just because it's so rigid, but it's still comfortable. They also did give a discount code for our viewers, so that's pretty cool. I think it's 10% off. I'll put that discount code somewhere here-ish maybe. It'll also be down in the description below as well. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below, or if you have any concerns, whatever, you know, put them down below, and I'll get back to all y'all. Like us on Instagram. We do have an Instagram page. Sometimes I forget to mention that. All the time I forget to mention that. Give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff. And hit the notifications bell as well. That helps us out quite a bit. But anyways, hope you all have a good one.